Happy Valentines! Now, Valentine's is fast approaching, and it's a bit more than just a day for lovers or who you'd like to give your card to be your Valentines. In fact, it goes back for over 2,000 years. And ghosts, well, stay tuned and I'll tell you more. So welcome back to the Bric at Brac Shop. I'm Tom Scott and happy Valentine's Day. It's fast approaching and some of you will be getting presents and cards for your special one. And it's a tradition that actually goes back over 2,000 years and even beyond that as well. Now, don't forget, if you enjoy this episode coming up, click the like button. And also, if this is your first time, welcome. And make sure you don't miss out by subscribing and clicking the bell so you don't miss out. So, Valentine's Day. Now, it's day 14th of February that everyone gives presents or cards to their loved ones or their intended loved ones, like Valentine cards. Now, it's a tradition that's gone on for years, but it actually has been going on for quite a few centuries. It dates back to the Roman times and even beyond that to the ancient Greeks and further back as well. Now, originally I did some research to find some of the darker sides of Valentine's Day, and apparently it's becoming to be quite dark in itself. I came across a few religious people who don't approve of Valentine's, saying it's a day of debauchery. Well, in a way, I suppose you could have said that, because it went back to the Roman times, as I've said, because it used to be the festival of Lupercalia. And that was a festival time in ancient Rome, where they would have 3 days of festivities, 13th to the 15th of February. Now, don't forget, it was the winter months, so the days were now beginning to get longer, and spring was just around the corner, just before the Easter festivities. Now, the way they would celebrate this was that there was a sacrifice of goats or a dog or both, and the blood would be smeared on the foreheads of the men. And then the men would wear the goat skins and also get the strips of the sacrificed beasts and then go around whipping the women. Now, the women didn't mind this, because if they got whipped, they would it would mean that they would be more fertile and also have an easy childbirth. And also women's names were put into an urn or a box, and it would be drawn out for each man, and they would match up together. And this would last for about a year, and sometimes would even lead to marriage. So it was a very amorous festival, obviously, I would say, for the young. And over the years, that's the way it's happened. So you can see the relation between that and Valentine's Day. Now, the Catholic Church, in 496, Pope Gelasius I brought the festivities in line with Christianity. And like all the other pagan festivities, incorporated it into the Christian church, like Christmas and Easter. Now, how this festival, or this day, became known as St Valentine's was because of Valentine. Now, in the 3rd century, there was a priest. In fact, they believe there was a few of them, about 3, that were executed. Now, maybe Valentine was a popular name, but the story goes that in the 3rd century, Emperor Claudius II decreed that his soldiers weren't allowed to be married, because he thought it would distract the soldiers and they wouldn't want to fight. And so he abolished marriage for the soldiers. Now, that St Valentine, he was a priest and in secret would marry the soldiers. And he was found out and he was imprisoned. And while he was in prison, he actually befriended the jailer's daughter. And apparently she was blind, but he managed to create a miracle and she was able to see again. And they became good friends. However, for St Valentine, he was condemned to be executed, beheaded, on the 14th of February, around the year 269. And he wrote a note to the jailer's daughter, and he signed it, "From your Valentine." And that, apparently, is where the Valentine name came from. So he was executed. And so the Catholic Church, in 496, by Pope Julius I, combined the Lupercalia festival with St Valentine and made it St Valentine's Day. And that's where we remember St Valentine. However, it wasn't until about the Middle Ages that sending cards or notes became popular. Now, the first recorded note was in 1415 by Charles, Duke d'Orleans. Now, he was actually captured in the Battle of Agincourt, part of the 100 Years' War, and he was imprisoned in the Tower of London, and he wrote virtually the first Valentine's letter to his wife back in France. Unfortunately, she died before the note actually got to her, so she never really saw it. But that's the first recorded note of a Valentine's letter, and in fact it's in the British Library. Now, the practice of sending notes or cards didn't actually take off until about the 1600s, and then it spread across the ocean to America and became quite popular in the 1700s. In fact, the first printed Valentine's card was 1797, and you can see it in the York Castle Museum. It was printed and hand-painted. Now, over in America, in Massachusetts, there was Esther Howland, who noticed how nice these Valentine cards were that they were sending to each other across the ocean. So she basically started mass producing these Valentine cards back in 1849. In fact, she got so big with the business, it was bringing in over $100,000 a year. And that was a lot of money back in 1849. In fact, she became known as the mother of the American Valentine. And of course, later in the 20th century, in 1913, Hallmark, which was actually then known as Hall Brothers, started continuing the tradition of the Valentine cards, which for the 20th century is probably known as the main printer of Valentine's cards. And the rose. Sending a rose virtually almost started with Charles of Sweden back in the 1700s, because there was a whole language of flowers, and of course the rose who meant love. He started that, and it started a whole tradition of people sending roses. In fact, that whole idea of sending flowers with different meanings even dated before that to the Persian times and was known as florography, and continued for a while. And in fact, a lot of it's been forgotten. However, everyone do recognizes that a red rose means love. And from about the middle of the 1800s, with cards and flowers and chocolates, Valentine's Day became a day for commercialism, to make some extra money. And it's amazing how much money is made on Valentine's Day. Now, you could say the tradition still goes on. Back in the old days, it was a festivity for love and to get together. In a way, it's still the same how we proclaim our love to each other, and this time probably more on a one-to-one basis. Now, looking to the darker side of Valentine's, I couldn't actually find that much, except for a few religions actually not approving of it, because it dated back to the pagan times, and so it was actually a pagan ritual. And also to think about love just for one day, instead of love all through the year. But it was amazing how much they actually put down Valentines. And I found that with a couple of religions in my findings. I couldn't find much about spirits or ghosts or paranormal about Valentines. However, the only thing I did find was the St Valentine's Day Massacre, which happened in Chicago, naturally on Valentine's Day, the 14th of February in 1929, with Al Capone. Now, he was the bootlegger, providing alcohol in the period of Prohibition, when alcohol was illegal in America. And he had, naturally, a few gang enemies. So he went out to kill some of his rivals, and in a plan that went wrong. Now, the leader wasn't there, but he killed most of the gang. And he got away with it, but in the later years, he was noted to have said that the ghosts of those colleagues would come and haunt him, and he was plagued with their spirits visiting him all the time. In fact, one or two other friends of his actually noticed something around him as well. Now, that's just a quick bit of the spirit, or spirits, for St Valentine's Day, or the St Valentine's Day Massacre. And I'll probably do another video on that another time. But this is basically to look at St Valentine's Day and where it came from, and why we celebrate it. So it's a time of love, to show your affections for someone, and hopefully they'll reciprocate and say yes and be your Valentines. So if you've liked this episode, click on the like button, and as I've said, if it's your first time, please subscribe and click the bell, and because I'm going to bring out some more videos very soon, and you don't want to miss out. Okay, so well, I hope you've liked this episode. So happy Valentines, and stay safe, well, and happy, and I'll see you very soon.